The stars stretched across the viewing screen like scattered diamonds on black cloth. Fleet Commander Vorethkai stood at the center of the bridge, his 4 eyes moving slowly across the holographic map that floated before him. 200 warships waited behind his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. 200 vessels filled with soldiers who had conquered dozens of worlds. 200 instruments of death, all pointed at one small blue planet, New Helsinki, a human colony world. Vorethkai's scales shifted from dark green to a satisfied purple. This would be easy. The humans had only been traveling among the stars for 300 years. They were children compared to the HFY hegemony, which had ruled its corner of the galaxy for 2,000 years. 40 species had fallen before HFY might. What was one more? The bridge doors slid open behind him. Vorethkai did not turn. He already knew who had arrived. The old ambassador had been requesting an audience for 3 days, and Vorethkai had finally grown tired of refusing. "Fleet Commander," said a weathered voice. "Thank you for seeing me." Vorethkai finally turned. Ambassador Siluan stood in the doorway, his scales pale with age, his 4 eyes clouded but still sharp. He had spent 40 years living among humans as a diplomatic observer, 40 years watching them, studying them, learning their ways. Most considered this a waste of a career. Why study such a young and weak species? "You have traveled far to speak with me, Ambassador," Vorethkai said. 3 weeks is a long journey for an old man. "I would have traveled 3 years if it meant stopping this attack," Siluan replied. He walked slowly onto the bridge, and the crew members watched him with barely hidden contempt. Diplomats were not respected among warriors. "Fleet Commander, I beg you to reconsider this mission," Vorethkai laughed. The sound was harsh in the quiet bridge. "Reconsider? We have 200 warships. The humans have a small colony with perhaps 200,000 settlers and a defense force that could not stop a trading vessel. What is there to reconsider? Everything." Siluan's voice was urgent now. "You do not understand what you are about to awaken. Enlighten me." "Then," Vorethkai gestured toward the holographic display, "show me what I should fear about these soft creatures with their weak bodies and their short lives." Siluan moved closer to the display. His old hands trembled slightly as he pointed at the blue planet. "I have lived among them, Fleet Commander. I have eaten their food, learned their languages, studied their history. They are not like us. They are not like any species I have ever encountered. They are prey," Vorethkai said simply. "Like all the others? No." Siluan shook his head. "They are predators, but not the kind you understand. Not the kind who hunt for food or territory." He paused, searching for the right words. "On their homeworld, there was once a creature called a wolf. Humans hunted these wolves, and for the most part, the wolves learned to fear and avoid humans. But sometimes, a wolf would attack a human village, kill livestock, perhaps kill a person." Vorethkai made an impatient gesture. And the humans would hunt that wolf. Not just the next day, or the next week. They would hunt it for months, years, if necessary. They would follow its tracks through snow and rain and summer heat. They would track it across mountains and rivers and forests. They would not stop until the wolf was dead. Siluan's clouded eyes met Vorethkai's. They called it persistence hunting. It is perhaps the oldest form of hunting on their world. They cannot run faster than their prey. They cannot fight with claws or fangs. But they can follow. They can track. And they never, ever stop. "A fascinating history lesson," Vorethkai said dryly. "But we are not wolves, Ambassador. We are the HFY hegemony. We have conquered 40 species. You conquered species who understood when they were beaten," Siluan replied. "Species who surrendered when the cost became too high. Species who calculated their losses and chose survival over continued fighting." He stepped closer to Vorethkai, and there was something like desperation in his old eyes. "Humans do not calculate the same way we do. When you hurt them, when you kill their people, something changes in them. Something that has no equivalent in our psychology." "Fear?" Vorethkai suggested mockingly. "No, the opposite of fear." Siluan's voice dropped low. "They have a word for it. Several words, actually. Vengeance, retribution, justice. But none of these translations capture what it truly means. It is a fire that does not go out, a wound that does not heal until they have made you bleed in return." The bridge had grown quiet. Even the officers who had been pretending not to listen were now watching openly. Selûne continued, his voice carrying across the silent room. I have seen their history, Fleet Commander. When enemies have attacked them, they have fought wars that lasted generations. They have crossed oceans and continents to punish those who wronged them. They have spent fortunes, sacrificed millions of their own people, endured decades of hardship, all to answer a single act of aggression. Vorethkai was growing annoyed now. Enough stories, Ambassador. We have ships, weapons, superior technology. You have nothing, Selûne interrupted, and there was steel in his aged voice. You have toys. You have tools. You do not have what they have. He pointed at the planet on the display. There are 200,000 humans on that world. If you attack them, if you kill even one of them, you will not be facing 200,000 colonists. You will be facing all of humanity. 12 billion souls spread across 40 worlds, and they will come for you. Let them come, Vorethkai said. We will destroy them. You do not understand. Selûne grabbed Vorethkai's arm, a shocking breach of protocol that made nearby officers reach for their weapons. You cannot destroy them. You can kill 1 million of them, 10 million, 100 million, and the survivors will keep coming. They will follow you across the galaxy. They will track you for years, for decades, for however long it takes. They will spend every resource they have. They will sacrifice everything. Vorethkai pulled his arm free. Guards, escort the ambassador back to his ship. 2 soldiers stepped forward, but Selûne did not move. His 4 eyes were fixed on Vorethkai with terrible intensity. Attack them if you must, he said as the guards took hold of his arms. But know this, Fleet Commander. If you draw human blood today, you will spend the rest of your life running, and it will not be enough. They will find you. They will follow you to the ends of the universe if they must. The guards began pulling him toward the door. Selûne shouted his final warning, his voice echoing across the bridge. They will never let you flee. Do you understand? They will never let you flee. The doors closed behind him. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Vorethkai laughed. He turned back to the holographic display, to the small blue world hanging in the void. Old fool, he said. Frightened by stories, he looked at his navigation officer. Set course for New Helsinki. We attack at dawn. The fleet moved forward. 200 ships sliding through the darkness toward their target. In his quarters, Ambassador Selûne sat alone, his old hands pressed against his face. He had failed. He had tried everything he could. And he had failed. The Kethvari did not understand what they were about to do. They did not understand what they were about to awaken, but they would learn. The stars watched in silence as the fleet jumped to light speed. Somewhere ahead, 200,000 humans went about their lives, unaware that death was coming, unaware that in a few short hours, everything would change, unaware that they were about to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The first missiles struck New Helsinki at dawn, just as Vorethkai had planned. The orbital defense station disappeared in a ball of fire that could be seen from the planet's surface. 3 cargo ships tried to escape and were torn apart before they could reach jump distance. The colony's small fleet of patrol vessels fought bravely for 11 minutes before the last one was destroyed. Vorethkai watched from the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, his scales bright with satisfaction. This was conquest as it should be. Swift, brutal, complete. Begin landing operations, he ordered. I want ground troops in the capital within the hour. The dropships fell from orbit like metal rain. Thousands of Kethvari soldiers descended on New Helsinki's capital city, expecting the same easy victory they had achieved in space. They expected civilians to flee. They expected defenders to surrender once they saw the overwhelming force against them. They were wrong. The first dropship to land in the city center exploded before its doors could open. A human woman had driven a ground vehicle filled with explosives directly into it. She died instantly. So did 40 Kethvari soldiers. Commander Threx, who led the ground assault, reported to Vorethkai with confusion in his voice. They are not surrendering, he said. They are not even trying to escape. They are fighting. All of them. Civilians? Vorethkai asked. Everyone. Men, women, the elderly. We found a group of humans in what appeared to be a school. We thought they would surrender if we surrounded them. Threx paused. They attacked us with tools, farming equipment, kitchen knives. We lost 12 soldiers before we could subdue them. Then stop subduing them, Vorethkai said coldly. Kill them. That is what I am trying to tell you, Fleet Commander. We are killing them. They do not stop. They know they cannot win. But they keep fighting. The battle for New Helsinki was supposed to take 4 hours. It took 11 days. Every building became a fortress. Every street became a trap. Humans who had never held a weapon learned to fight in hours. Engineers built bombs from household chemicals. Doctors treated wounded defenders and then picked up weapons themselves when the Kethvari broke through their doors. On the 4th day, Vorethkai ordered a general bombardment of the residential districts. Thousands of humans died in the fire that followed. The survivors did not surrender. They moved into the ruins and kept fighting. On the 7th day, a wounded human man was captured trying to crawl toward a Kethvari communications relay. He had been shot twice and had lost so much blood that he should have been unconscious. When the soldiers searched him, they found explosives strapped to his chest. He detonated them before they could stop him. The relay was destroyed. So were 15 Kethvari soldiers. On the 9th day, Vorethkai received a report that made his scales turn pale. We have intercepted human transmissions, his communications officer said. They are broadcasting on all frequencies. The message has been sent to every human world in range. What message? The officer hesitated. They are not asking for help, Fleet Commander. They are not asking for rescue or negotiation or aid. He looked up from his console, and there was something like fear in his 4 eyes. They are simply saying 3 words, over and over again, in every human language. The same 3 words. What words? The officer swallowed. We are coming. On the 11th day, New Helsinki finally fell. The last defenders died in the ruins of the colonial government building, fighting hand-to-hand with Kethvari soldiers. An elderly human woman was the last to fall. She had killed 3 Kethvari with a piece of broken metal before they finally stopped her. Vorethkai stood in the ashes of the capital and counted his losses. He had expected to lose perhaps 100 soldiers taking this small colony. He had lost 4,000. 4,000 Kethvari warriors, killed by farmers and teachers and shopkeepers. Search the bodies, he ordered. Find their leaders. I want to know who organized this resistance. His soldiers searched for hours. They found no leaders. They found no generals or commanders or military officers. The resistance had organized itself. Neighbors had looked at neighbors and decided together to fight. Parents had taught children to hide and then picked up weapons. Strangers had become soldiers because their world was dying and they refused to die quietly. This is not possible, Threx said. No species fights like this. When defeat is certain, every rational being surrenders. Every species we have ever conquered has surrendered when they understood they could not win. They are not rational, Vorethkai replied, but his voice was uncertain. For the first time since the campaign began, he felt something cold in his chest. Something that might have been doubt. 3 days later, the doubt became fear. Long-range sensors detected ships emerging from jump space at the edge of the system. Vorethkai was summoned to the bridge, where he stood staring at the display with all 4 eyes wide. How many? He asked quietly. We count 500 warships, his sensor officer replied. No. Wait. More are arriving. 600. 700. The officer's voice trembled. Fleet Commander, our intelligence said the humans had no more than 200 military vessels in this entire sector. They must have pulled ships from other sectors, Vorethkai said. From their home territories. From everywhere. Fleet Commander. The communications officer spoke up. We are receiving a transmission from the human fleet. On screen, a human face appeared on the viewing display. It was a woman, perhaps middle-aged by human standards, with gray hair and cold eyes. She wore a military uniform covered in medals and insignia that Vorethkai did not recognize. This is Admiral Chen Wei of the United Human Navy, she said. Her voice was calm, almost pleasant. You have attacked a human colony. You have killed human citizens. You have 12 hours to surrender your entire fleet and submit to human justice. Vorethkai stepped forward. This is Fleet Commander Vorethkai of the Kethvari hegemony. You are outnumbered. Your threats are meaningless. If you attack us, you will be destroyed. Admiral Chen Wei smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. You misunderstand, she said. I am not here to attack you. I am here to tell you something important, so please listen carefully. She leaned closer to the camera. and her cold eyes seemed to look directly into Vorathkai's soul. You killed 12,000 of us on New Helsinki. Men, women, children. You bombed their homes. You shot them in the streets. You turned their world to ash. Her smile faded. So I want you to understand what happens now. We are not going to negotiate. We are not going to accept your surrender. We are not going to let you return to your space and pretend this never happened. Vorathkai felt the cold in his chest spread to his limbs. Then what do you intend? We intend to hunt you, Admiral Chen Wei said simply. Every ship, every soldier, every officer who participated in this attack. We will follow you across the galaxy if we must. We will track you for years, for decades, for however long it takes. You will not escape. You will not hide. You will not find safety anywhere in the universe. You cannot possibly. 12,000, the Admiral interrupted. You killed 12,000 of our people. Did you think we would forget? Did you think we would calculate our losses and accept a peace treaty? She shook her head slowly. We are not like you. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And we never stop. The transmission ended. Vorathkai stood alone on the bridge, surrounded by officers who would not meet his eyes. Behind him, 800 human warships moved closer, and the cold in his chest had become ice. He gave the only order he could give. All ships, retreat, maximum speed. Now, the Kethvari fleet fled into the darkness between stars. Behind them, the human fleet followed. The hunt had begun. The first week of the retreat was chaos. Vorathkai pushed his fleet to its limits, jumping from system to system in a desperate race toward Kethvari space. His ships were faster than standard human vessels, or so intelligence had always claimed. He calculated that 3 or 4 jumps would be enough to lose his pursuers. After the 4th jump, his sensor officer reported contacts emerging from jump space behind them. How is this possible? Vorathkai demanded. Their ships should not be able to track us through jump space. No one can track ships through jump space. They are not tracking us through jump space, the officer replied, his voice shaking. They are predicting where we will emerge. They know our course. They know our speed. They know where we are going. Vorathkai changed course. He ordered random jumps to systems that had no strategic value. He doubled back. He hid in asteroid fields and nebulae that should have scrambled any sensor readings. The humans found him anyway. By the end of the 2nd week, the first Kethvari ship was caught. It was a supply vessel that had fallen behind due to engine damage. Vorathkai ordered the fleet to continue without it. There was nothing else he could do. Later, he received a transmission from the captured ship. The humans had not destroyed it. They had boarded it, taken the crew prisoner, and seized the vessel intact. The captain's final message was a warning. They questioned me, the captain said. His voice was strange, hollow. They wanted to know everything. Every ship, every officer, every soldier who participated in the attack. They have a list, fleet commander. They have names and faces and records. They know who was there. And they are coming for all of us. The transmission ended. Vorathkai never heard from that captain again. In the 3rd week, the fleet began to fall apart. Captain Morith was the first to break formation. He commanded a fast cruiser, one of the quickest ships in the fleet, and he decided that he could outrun the humans on his own. He sent a brief message to Vorathkai, explaining his decision, then jumped to a random system far from the planned route. Human ships followed him. 3 vessels broke off from the main pursuit and tracked Morith's cruiser across 4 systems. When he tried to hide in the atmosphere of a gas giant, they waited. When he tried to run, they followed. When he finally surrendered after 6 days of chase, they boarded his ship and took him prisoner. None of his crew was killed. The humans did not destroy his ship or execute his soldiers. They simply took them, added them to their growing list of prisoners, and continued the hunt. Other captains tried the same thing. Some fled toward neutral space. Some tried to reach alien civilizations that might offer protection. Some simply flew in random directions, hoping to disappear into the vast emptiness between stars. The humans split their fleet. Every ship that broke formation was followed by a human pursuit group. 5 ships, 10 ships, 50 ships. It did not matter. The humans had enough vessels to chase every single one. This is madness, Threk said during a strategy meeting on the 4th week. No species wastes resources like this. The cost of pursuing us across the galaxy must be enormous. They are spending more on this hunt than they could ever recover in victory. They are not thinking about cost, Vorathkai replied quietly. He had stopped sleeping. His scales had faded to a sickly gray. They are not thinking about resources or strategy or winning. They are thinking about 12,000 dead colonists. But we offered to negotiate. We offered reparations. We offered territorial concessions. They refused. Vorathkai's 4 eyes were distant, haunted. They always refuse. They do not want our territory or our money, or our apologies. They want us. On the 5th week, a captured human pilot was brought before Vorathkai. Her ship had been disabled in a skirmish near a jump point, and she had been recovered from the wreckage more dead than alive. The medical team had saved her life, hoping she might provide useful intelligence. She was small, this human, fragile-looking, with soft skin and strange round eyes. Bandages covered half her body. She should have been terrified. Instead, she was smiling. "Why do you smile?" Vorathkai asked. "Because you look scared," the human replied. Her voice was hoarse from pain, but there was something bright and hard in her eyes. "You should be scared. You have no idea what is coming for you. We have ships. We have weapons. We have reinforcements waiting in Kethvari space. None of that matters." The human shook her head slowly. "You do not understand us at all, do you? You think this is a war. You think there will be battles and negotiations and eventually a peace treaty." She laughed, and the sound was cold. "This is not a war. This is a hunt, and we do not stop hunting until we have caught every single one of you." Vorathkai leaned forward. "Why? Why would you spend so much to punish us for one attack? You have other enemies, other threats. Why waste everything on us?" The human's smile faded. Her strange, round eyes grew serious. "Because you killed our people," she said simply. "You bombed their homes. You shot them in the streets. You turned their children to ash." She paused. "And now you want to know why we will not let you escape? Why we will follow you to the end of the universe?" She leaned forward despite her injuries, and her voice dropped to a whisper. "Because that is who we are. We are the species that tracks wolves through winter. We are the species that crosses oceans to avenge a single death. We are the species that remembers every wrong and repays every debt." Her eyes met Vorathkai's. "You wanted to know what you should fear about humans. This is what you should fear. Not our weapons, not our ships, our memory, our persistence, our absolute refusal to ever let go." Vorathkai sat back. His scales had gone completely gray. "Take her away," he said quietly. The human was dragged from the room, but her words remained. They echoed in Vorathkai's mind as he watched his fleet shrink day by day. 60 ships lost in the 6th week, 40 more in the 7th, some destroyed in combat, most captured, their crews taken prisoner, their vessels seized. By the end of the 2nd month, Vorathkai had only 34 ships remaining, 34 out of 200. The rest were either destroyed, captured, or lost somewhere in the vast darkness with human hunters on their trails. He had sent dozens of messages to Kethvari High Command, begging for reinforcements. The responses were confusing. Something was happening in hegemony space. Something wrong, but the messages were garbled, incomplete. When he finally reached the border of Kethvari territory, he expected to find safety. He expected to find a massive fleet waiting to protect him, to drive back the human pursuers, to end this nightmare. Instead, he found chaos. The humans had arrived before him. How was that possible? How could they be everywhere at once? How could they know where he was going before he got there? Vorathkai did not understand. He could not understand. He was not a wolf. He was a hunter, a conqueror, a fleet commander of the mighty Kethvari hegemony. But the humans had turned him into prey. And prey, he was beginning to learn, did not get to choose when the hunt ended. Only the hunters decided that. Vorathkai had dreamed of returning home as a conqueror. He had imagined celebrations, honors, the grateful thanks of the High Council. Instead, he returned as a fugitive. His great fleet reduced to 34 battered ships, his reputation in ruins. But the nightmare waiting for him in Kethvari space was worse than anything he had imagined. Human ships had arrived before him. Not the main war fleet that was still pursuing his remaining vessels, but smaller ships, fast couriers, stealth vessels, scout ships that had raced ahead through routes that no one knew humans had mapped. They had spread across Kethvari space like a disease, They have been here for weeks, Admiral Vrex told Vorathkai when he finally docked at the orbital station above Kethvar Prime. The Admiral was old, a veteran of 40 campaigns, and his scales were gray with worry. They are not attacking, not directly, but they are everywhere. What are they doing? Talking. Vrex's voice was bitter. They have been broadcasting recordings from New Helsinki. Every species in the sector has seen them, every trading partner, every ally, every neutral civilization. They have seen the bombardment. They have heard the screams. They have watched our soldiers shoot civilians in the streets. Vorathkai felt his insides turn cold. The Council must respond. We must explain that the humans provoked us, that they resisted beyond all reason. The Council is trying. Vrex shook his head. But no one is listening. The Rithani have declared neutrality. The Vorn Collective has closed their borders to Kethvari ships. 3 of our client species have broken their treaties. He paused. The humans have turned the entire galaxy against us without firing a shot. It was worse than that. Vorathkai soon learned. Human agents had infiltrated trade networks. Supply lines were disrupted. Communications were jammed. Intelligence reports were unreliable because human hackers had corrupted the information networks. The humans were not just fighting a war. They were destroying the hegemony from within. 2 days after Vorathkai's arrival, the High Council summoned him. The council chamber was vast, a circular room carved from living stone, its walls decorated with the banners of 40 conquered species. Vorathkai had stood in this room before, receiving medals and praise. Now he stood as an accused criminal. The High Counselor was ancient, his scales so pale they were almost white. He sat on a throne of black stone and looked down at Vorathkai with cold eyes. You have brought disaster upon us, the High Counselor said. A simple conquest has become a war we cannot win. Our allies abandon us, our enemies grow bold. And the humans, he paused, his 4 eyes narrowing. The humans demand blood. They are still pursuing my fleet, Vorathkai said. If we gather our forces, if we strike back, we cannot strike back. The High Counselor cut him off. We have tried. 3 battle groups engaged human forces near the border. All 3 were destroyed. Not defeated. Destroyed. The humans took no prisoners. They left no survivors. A murmur ran through the council chamber. Vorathkai felt the blood drain from his face. They took prisoners from my fleet, he said. They captured my ships. They did not destroy them. That was before we executed the human prisoners we held. The High Counselor's voice was flat. We thought a show of strength might discourage them. We were wrong. Now they leave nothing alive. Vorathkai closed his eyes. Everything was falling apart. Everything he had built, everything he had believed, was turning to ash. What does the council propose? He asked quietly. The High Counselor gestured, and guards moved to surround Vorathkai. He did not resist. The council proposes sacrifice, the High Counselor said. You will be publicly executed. Your officers will be surrendered to human justice. We will offer reparations, territory, anything the humans demand. Perhaps they will be satisfied with your death. Perhaps. But even as the guards led him away, Vorathkai knew that perhaps was not enough. The human pilot's words echoed in his mind. They do not stop hunting until they have caught every single one of you. The human ambassador arrived 3 days later. She was a tall woman with dark skin and gray hair, dressed in simple civilian clothes rather than military uniform. Her name was Ambassador Okonkwo, and she spoke with a soft voice that somehow filled the entire council chamber. We have received your offer, she said. The execution of Fleet Commander Vorathkai, the surrender of his officers, reparations and territorial concessions. She paused. We refuse. The High Counselor leaned forward. What more do you want? We have offered you everything. You have offered us tokens. Ambassador Okonkwo shook her head. You think you can end this with a few executions and some territory? You think we are like you, that we calculate costs and benefits and accept reasonable compromises? Her dark eyes swept across the council chamber. We are not like you. Then tell us what you want, the High Counselor demanded. Name your price. We will pay it. We want you to remember. Ambassador Okonkwo's voice hardened. Every species in this galaxy is going to remember what happens when you attack humanity. They will remember for 1,000 years. They will tell stories about it. They will warn their children about it. And when some future conqueror thinks about attacking a human colony, they will remember this war, and they will choose differently. She stepped forward, and the guards moved to stop her. But she waved them away with a gesture. We do not want territory. We do not want resources. We do not want your wealth or your technology or your subservience. She paused. We want justice. We want every soldier who murdered our people. We want every officer who ordered the bombardment. We want every official who planned this attack, and we will hunt them across the galaxy until we have them all. The High Counselor's scales had gone pale. That is impossible. You are asking us to surrender thousands of our people. I am telling you what we require. Ambassador Okonkwo's voice was calm, implacable. You can refuse. We will continue the hunt. Your economy will collapse. Your allies will abandon you. Your people will suffer. And in the end, we will still get what we want. The only question is how much you are willing to lose before you give it to us. This is madness, the High Counselor said. No species behaves this way. No species spends so much to avenge so few. Ambassador Okonkwo smiled then, and it was a smile that held no warmth, no compromise, no mercy. We do, she said simply. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, I almost forgot, we want our prisoners back, all of them, unharmed. The council chamber was silent. Some of the prisoners have been executed, the High Counselor said finally. As a show of strength, Ambassador Okonkwo did not turn around. Her voice was very quiet. I see. Then this war is not over yet. She left. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Arguments, accusations, desperate plans. None of it mattered. Vorathkai sat in his cell and listened to the guards talk. They spoke of human ships appearing throughout Kethvari space. They spoke of entire fleets, mobilizing, not for negotiation, but for systematic destruction. They spoke of something the humans called total war. He thought about Ambassador Seluun, the old diplomat who had tried to warn him. Do not attack the humans. They will never let you flee. He had not listened. He had been too proud, too confident, too certain of his own superiority. Now he was a prisoner waiting to die, and his entire civilization was paying the price for his arrogance. Outside his cell window, he could see the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were gathering. Human soldiers were preparing. Human families were mourning their dead and waiting for justice. They would not stop. They would never stop. Vorathkai finally understood, and understanding came far, far too late. 50 years had passed since the war ended. The young Rithani diplomat stood at the edge of the garden, watching the celebration unfold before her. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species mingled together, eating strange foods, speaking in translator-assisted conversations, laughing at jokes that crossed cultural barriers through sheer goodwill. Her name was Kirith, and this was her first galactic summit. Everything amazed her. The diversity, the complexity, the sheer impossibility of so many different species finding common ground. But one group amazed her most of all. The humans moved through the crowd like social artists, adapting to each species they encountered. They bowed to the formal Vorn. They clasped arms with the boisterous Thesari. They offered small gifts to the gift-loving Mendi. They remembered names and customs and preferences as if every being they met was an old friend. One human in particular caught Kirith's attention. She was middle-aged by human standards, with warm brown eyes and a quick smile. She noticed Kirith watching and walked over. First summit? The human asked. Yes. Kirith felt nervous. She had heard so many stories about humans. I am Kirith, diplomatic attaché, from Rithani Prime. Sarah Chen. The human extended her hand, and Kirith took it carefully. The human grip was firm but gentle. My grandmother was Admiral Chen Wei. She was at the New Helsinki War. Kirith felt a chill run down her spine. Everyone knew about New Helsinki. Everyone knew about the war that followed. I have heard the stories, Kirith said carefully. About what your people did. I imagine you have. Sarah's smile faded slightly. Most species have heard those stories by now. It was a long time ago, but people remember. They say your fleet pursued the Kethvari for 11 years, that you tracked down every soldier who participated in the attack, that you spent resources that could have built 100 colony worlds. All true. Sarah nodded. My grandmother led the pursuit for the first 3 years. She died before it ended, but her successors continued her work. Why? Kirith asked. The question had bothered her since she first learned about the war. The HFY offered peace. They offered reparations. They offered everything. Why did your people refuse? Sarah was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful, careful, because it was not about what we could gain. It was about who we are. She looked up at the stars visible through the garden's transparent dome. 12,000 people died on New Helsinki. Farmers, teachers, children. They were not soldiers. They were just people, living their lives, trying to build something new. She paused. Someone had to answer for that. Not because it would bring them back, not because it would make things right, but because some debts must be paid. Some wrongs must be answered. Otherwise, what are we? Kirith did not know how to respond. The Rithani did not think this way. No species she knew of thought this way. It seems like madness, she said finally. Spending so much to punish an enemy who was already defeated. Maybe it is. Sarah shrugged. But it works. In 50 years, no one has attacked a human colony. No one has harassed human traders or kidnapped human citizens. Other species have wars and conflicts and border disputes. We have peace, because everyone is afraid of you. Yes. Sarah met Kirith's eyes, and there was something ancient in her gaze, something that did not match her middle-aged face. They are afraid, and that fear keeps our people safe. 1 million humans are alive today because the HFY taught the galaxy what happens when you make us your enemy. Across the garden, a group of HFY diplomats were talking with human delegates. Kirith watched them with amazement. The two species who had fought such a terrible war were laughing together, sharing drinks, comparing notes about trade agreements. How is that possible? She asked. How can your people be friends with them after everything that happened? Because the debt was paid. Sarah's voice was soft. It took 11 years. Thousands of war criminals were brought to justice. Reparations were made. Memorials were built. And when it was done, we let it go. The HFY of today are not the HFY who attacked New Helsinki. Their children should not inherit their parents' sins. Sarah turned to face Kirith fully, and her warm brown eyes were serious. That is the other thing people forget about humans. They remember the hunt. They remember the persistence. They remember the war that lasted a decade. But they forget that it ended. We do not hate forever. We do not hold grudges across generations. When the price is paid, we move on. She gestured toward the HFY delegates. Look at them. 50 years ago, we were mortal enemies. Now they are among our closest allies. We trade with them. We share technology with them. Their children study at our universities. Their artists perform in our theaters. She smiled. We taught them a terrible lesson, but we also taught them that the lesson has an ending. An old HFY separated from the group and walked toward them. His scales were pale with age, and he moved slowly, carefully, but his 4 eyes were sharp and clear. Ambassador Vorath, Sarah said warmly. I was hoping to see you tonight. Kirith felt her blood freeze. Vorath. That name was in every history book. Fleet Commander Vorath Kai, who ordered the attack on New Helsinki. Fleet Commander Vorath Kai, who started the war that killed millions. Fleet Commander Vorath Kai, who was standing in front of her, talking calmly with a human. Sarah. The old HFY's voice was rough with age. Your grandmother would be proud of you. She always spoke highly of your potential. You knew my grandmother? She interrogated me for 3 months after my capture. Vorath Kai made a sound that might have been a laugh. She was terrifying, brilliant, absolutely unrelenting. He paused. I hated her more than I have ever hated anyone, and I respected her more than I have ever respected anyone. Sarah nodded. She said similar things about you. She said you were a worthy enemy. I was a fool. Vorath Kai shook his head slowly. I was warned. An old ambassador named Saloon came to my ship before the attack. He told me what would happen. He begged me to turn back. His 4 eyes grew distant with memory. I did not listen. I thought I knew better. I thought the HFY were invincible. And now? Kirith found herself asking. Vorath Kai turned to look at her. His ancient eyes held depths of pain and wisdom that she could not comprehend. Now I am the one who warns others, he said. I travel to diplomatic summits. I meet with young military commanders and ambitious politicians. I tell them the story of New Helsinki. He gestured at the celebration around them. I tell them what I learned from the humans. What did you learn? Kirith asked. Vorath Kai was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, His voice was heavy with 50 years of memory. I learned that humans make wonderful friends. They are generous and curious and kind. They help those in need. They forgive those who wrong them. They build bridges across the gaps between species. He turned to look at Kirith directly, and his 4 eyes were filled with ancient knowledge. But I also learned that you should never give them a reason to become your enemy, because if you do, if you hurt their people, if you kill their children, if you make them bleed, they will follow you to the ends of the universe. They will hunt you across the stars. They will spend everything they have, sacrifice everything they are, until the debt is paid. He paused. They will never let you flee. Kirith looked at Sarah, at the warm smile and the kind eyes. She looked at Vorethkai, at the ancient scales and the haunted gaze. She looked at the garden full of species who had learned to live together, to cooperate, to build something greater than themselves. And she understood. The humans were not conquerors. They were not warriors. They were not the greatest scientists or the most advanced civilization or the most powerful military force in the galaxy. They were something else, something more dangerous, something more valuable. They were the species that remembered, the species that persisted, the species that never stopped until the debt was paid. And that was why, 50 years after the war ended, the galaxy was at peace, because everyone remembered the lesson of New Helsinki, and no one wanted to learn it again.